Hello, everyone. I'm muting everybody else. Sorry. You will all be unmuted shortly. Sorry about that. It happens, and we will just work through it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and welcome to our event for Unicorn Rescue Society with Adam Gidwitz, Emma Otheguy, Hena, David Bowles, and Joseph Bruchac. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to host you all. For those who are unfamiliar, Unicorn Rescue Society is a series about kids who are part of an organization that helps rescue mythological creatures from different parts of the world. And we have many parts of the world and cultures represented by these authors tonight. I'm so excited to host such a diverse group. Hold on one second. Of course, my Microsoft Word crashed, which had my introduction in it. So I'm going to do a couple plugs before we get started with the introductions. If you would like to buy any of the Unicorn Rescue Society books from Flyleaf or books from any of the other authors, you can click the Buy Unicorn Rescue Society and More from Flyleaf link just below our faces. It's a green link. If you'd like to see other Flyleaf Books events, you can click the icon above us where it says Flyleaf Books. And I don't know what's happening with my bios. I'm so sorry. What about we could jump right in, and you could each introduce yourselves briefly if that would work. I'm sorry about that.
Yes,
you know how the internet goes. Okay, all right. I'm going to hand things over to Adam because my computer's not working very well, but it looks like his is. So let's go ahead and I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you so much, Talia, and thank you to Flyleaf Books for hosting us, and thank you especially to the URS authors who are here. I feel like working on this series, Unicorn Rescue Society, has absolutely been one of the greatest thrills of my career, in large part because I've gotten to work with incredible authors like these. So very briefly, we can each introduce ourselves, maybe mention a book and then the URS book we wrote. I'm Adam Gidwitz. I wrote a book called The Inquisitor's Tale, and I'm one of the authors on all URS books. Joe, do you want to go next? One book order.
My name is Joe Bruchac, and Luigi Souza, Palanoke da Jose, dai Salatori alla Maison Victor London. I'm known as Joseph, or the Peaceful One, from the area around Saratoga Springs, the Adirondack Mountain region. And I'm speaking the Abenaki language, which is my family's native tongue. And if I'm going to mention one book, it's one I think the world needs now. And that's this one, The Story of the Haudenosaunee Peacemaker. Peace is really needed. And this is the story of a man 1,000 years ago who brought peace to 5 warring nations, and is illustrated by the grandson of one of my great teachers, Ray Dolan Fadden. His grandson, David Ganeta Fadden, did the illustrations for this beautiful book from Wisdom Tales Press.
And
my
you, Joe.
book
So
is a Sasquatch book, and we'll get to that.
Yes, we will. Yes, this is Joe's. David, go for it.
Hey, David Bowles. I'm a Mexican-American author from deep South Texas, from the borderlands between Mexico and the United States. And among my books, the most well-known, I guess, is They Call Me Güero. And of course, I wrote the Chupacabras of the Rio Grande with Adam for URS.
Yes, which is this one. And you know what? I'm going to start muting myself when I'm not talking, and I think we all should so we don't get feedback. All right, and Emma, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma Otheguy. I'm crowdcasting in from Nueva York. My most recent book is A Sled for Gabo, which is also available in Spanish. Un trineo para Gabo is the Spanish title. And I wrote with Adam the Unicorn Rescue Society and the Madre de Aguas of Cuba.
Hena, I'm going to go ahead and kick you off for 1 second. I'll invite you back. If you refresh your Crowdcast page, that'll usually solve the problem.
And
Sorry.
And Joe, if you know how to hover over your face to mute your camera, that might help too with the feedback.
All right, sorry about that. I just invited Hena back on screen. To everyone watching, this is
a big moment because Hena and I wrote the book that's coming out today, Secret of the Himalayas, and so she's going to come back in a second, and we're going to jump right into it. And here's Hena.
Hi, is that better? Great. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Hena Khan. I'm coming to you from my hometown of Maryland, Rockville. And I'm the author. My most recent book is Amina's Song, which just came out in March. It's the sequel to Amina's Voice. And I am so thrilled to be co-authoring book 6, The Secret of the Himalayas, with Adam, which I think he has maybe a copy of, or we have. Yay, there it is. And so excited to share it with you all today.
Thank you. So, yes, I am just so excited to be doing this celebration. So there are 6 books currently in the Unicorn Rescue Society series. The first one, Creature of the Pines, featuring a Jersey Devil and the Jersey Pine Barrens. The second one, The Basque Dragon, featuring a Heron Suge, which is a Basque dragon. Sasquatch and the Muckleshoot by me and Joe. The Chupacabras of the Rio Grande by me and David. The Madre Aguas of Cuba by me and Emma. And The Secret of the Himalayas by me and Hena. Because this week is the book birthday, we're going to read you a very short passage from Secret of the Himalayas. So, Hena, will you set up this passage for us?
Yes. So this book takes place in the mountainous region of Pakistan, the Himalayas of Pakistan, on a mountain called Torgar. And so we have Elliot and Uchenna and Professor Fauna following their guide, Walid, up this mountain with a mysterious man called the Watcher, who is leading them towards what they hope will be, the unicorns that they've been waiting to discover for so long. So here they are trekking up this massive mountain. And we'll read.
And we will read, though it is not letting me share the screen. We're having all sorts of exciting things, I think, because there's too many screens on. So do you have it in front of you? Do you have the passage itself?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we'll just read. You're gonna just hear and imagine. Theater of the mind.
Sounds good. All right.
Yes. Okay.
Ready?
Take it away.
All right. The mountain peaks circle them like turrets of enormous castles.
This truly is a blessed land.
Walid marveled.
I'm lightheaded.
Uchenna said.
I'm about to die.
Elliot added.
I'll ask the Watcher if he can slow down.
Walid told them.
I don't know if he'll listen.
The Watcher was far out ahead, stepping from stone to stone like a mountain goat, holding a simple wooden stick in one hand, completely at ease, despite the fact that he looked older than the professor. He held a loop of black beads on a string in his other hand, clicking them between his fingers as he walked. Professor Fauna gasped.
No!
More gasping for air.
Do not slow down. We are nearly there. At the achievement of my life's goal. My forever dream. What did you call them? The horned creature of spiral dreams?
Walid said.
The spiral horned creature of dreams. Can we let Jersey out now?
Uchenna asked Walid.
He would love it up here.
Walid glanced at their guide, far ahead.
I don't think that's wise. Let's wait until we found the unicorns. I wouldn't want to do anything to upset the Watcher. Would it upset him if I died?
Elliot asked as he pulled up his leg to the next rock with his arms. Because
I'm pretty sure I'm about to.
Walid studied Elliot for a moment. At last he said,
no, I don't think it would bother him.
Uchenna laughed. Elliot cried. Walid grinned.
I'm just joking. I don't think he'll die, inshallah. But try not to. Because, yes, it would bother us all very much.
At last they came to a steep rise, one they could not see over. The Watcher had crouched down near the top of it and was peering over a large boulder. As Walid and the Unicorn Rescue Society arrived behind him, he motioned for them to get down with one hand, while putting a finger to his lips with the other. Uchenna glanced at Elliot. Elliot glanced back at Uchenna. This was the moment. Professor Fauna's body started jerking like a car trying to drive with the parking brake on. He seemed unable to decide whether to throw himself on the ground to maintain their cover or to leap on top of the boulder and shout,
"Unicorns at last!"
So he did neither. He just stood there, half bent over, lurching like a broken robot.
"I think he's losing it,"
Uchenna whispered, gesturing at the professor.
"Did he have it?"
Elliot replied.
"When?"
They crept up to the boulder where the Watcher was hiding. The Watcher nodded.
"What does that mean?"
Elliot whispered.
"It means look over there,"
Waleed answered. So Elliot, Uchenna, and Professor Fauna slowly raised themselves above the rocks.
"I think I'm peeing my pants,"
said the professor.
"Me too,"
Uchenna answered. They looked down from atop the boulders, and there they were. At last, spiraling horns, many beautiful, long, straight, spiraling horns. It was a whole herd of,
"Wait a minute.
said Uchenna.
What are those?" Dun, dun, dun.
There we have
Whatever
it.
they are, you just have to read The Secret of the Himalayas. Click on the green button at the bottom of your screen to get a copy. Nice reading, Hannah. Thank you for doing that. That was fun.
Thank you.
So this is what we like to do now, because we've just read a little bit of the book, but now I'd really like to get into what is the process of writing a Unicorn Rescue Society book. And we've all done it together, which is really unique. I've certainly never worked on a series like this. And so I thought we could share, or we all thought, we came up with this idea together, we could share the process through a series of stories. So generally what happens is, we've got this series and I think, okay, I want to write another book, but who should I write it with? Well, there are so many authors that I respect out there in the world, and some of them I'm lucky enough to get to meet. For example, Hena and I met at a conference. Right, Hena? You want to tell them?
Sure. Yeah. So we were introduced really briefly, and Adam was super friendly to me and helpful. I had my first middle grade book out, and I was kind of confused about things. So he was very generous with giving me advice. And then we were traveling back from the conference center, I think back to our hotel. So he was on the bus, and I sat next to him and we started chatting, and he told me about this project, which I guess became the Unicorn Rescue Society. At that time, I don't think you even had a name for it. But when you described this idea of mythological creatures around the world, I just launched into this story about a jinn, which is a creature that is very prevalent in the Muslim world that you may have heard of. We sometimes, you've heard of genies. Probably genies are sort of derived from jinn. And everyone I know has had a jinn story of some kind or another, or has heard of a jinn story. So I launched into a big jinn story that my dad had told my family. My dad, a man of science, not somebody you expect to talk about these types of things, but he told us about his village and how when he was growing up, there was something that was throwing stones out of a tree that was hitting, the ground and not creating any dust. And so I tried to entice Adam with this story, not knowing that it would lead later to him inviting me to co-author with him.
Well, I had no idea that you were trying to entice me to the story, but it clearly, I was like, that's a good story. She should be writing these Unicorn Rescue Society books. So I am very grateful that you said yes. So once I ask an author if I'm lucky enough that they say yes, and all of these incredible people did, which really blew my mind because the level of writing on here is just amazing. Then I say to the author, in almost every case, what do you want to write about? Which creature, so if we want to write about your culture, the Unicorn Rescue Society, visiting the place that you associate with your culture and your background, what creature should they meet? And I had this conversation with Joe. So Joe, how did it go?
Well, I suggested a couple of things. I suggested there's a long tradition of monsters in lakes. That's part of our tradition. But then we thought about it, and actually the better idea was something along the line of Sasquatch, because every native culture around the United States has something like Sasquatch in it. I know they're found in the Southwest, they're found in the Northwest, they're found in the Northeast. And the thing about the Sasquatch is it's become so sensationalized and so presented as something that you're supposed to hunt down and find, that I thought, working within a traditional native culture where people have respect for nature, for the creatures, and see them not as separate or something we need to control, but as beings in their own right, that Sasquatch was the right one to go with.
And I also love that. I think there was an element of it where Sasquatch, the word itself, which is the most famous name for Bigfoot other than Bigfoot, comes from the Muckleshoot people. Is that right?
That is correct. It comes from the people of the Northwest called the Muckleshoot. And I said, what we need to do is base it in those places, in that culture of those people. And I had a few contacts out there and started talking to folks I knew, and soon discovered that the branch of the Salish language I had learned was totally different from Muckleshoot. So I was doing language lessons online to make sure that things were correct. But they were wonderful. They were very, very eager to help and to present a positive picture of their land, their culture, and that very important being, the Sasquatch.
Including, one of the things that I love about the book is the Muckleshoot type, actually, shoot seed. I'm probably saying that wrong. Type is used, is used in the book, and we got special permission to use that, and they helped us design it so it worked in the book. So yeah, it was a really cool experience. So once we choose the creature, then we start writing, and I usually write the first couple of chapters. Well, we outline. So I guess we choose the creature, and then we come up with an idea of what would happen in the story. And usually one of the co-author will say, like, what if this is the story? And then I bounce something back. And then we come up with an outline together of what if sort of the major plot points would be. And in creating that outline, there's a lot of give and take. Well, I think there needs to be a lot of poop jokes. That tends to be what I push for. And the co-author might be like, no, I want more poop jokes. Or the co-author might be like, I want this important cultural touchstone from something that is in my background or in our history that I want to make it in the book. And Emma had something that she really wanted to talk about when we were writing The Madre de Aguas of Cuba.
Yes, and I should add that there is no poop in the Madre de Aguas of Cuba, but there is pink sludge in a toilet. So when you were reading the Madre de Aguas of Cuba and you get to the toilet scene, that was Adam, the toilet scene. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about in the Madre de Aguas of Cuba was Uchenna and Elliot meet a guy who becomes their friend named Ioannis, who lives in Miami and takes them to see his family in Cuba. And he has a really sad story about how he left Cuba. It was a time when his family was really struggling. People in Cuba were very, very poor, continue to be poor, but at the time that Ioannis was a kid, it was really difficult. And his family, he left Cuba with his dad. So if you've ever read Refugee, there's a chapter there about leaving Cuba. So that's what Ioannis went to. This is something that a lot of people in many, many Cuban American families went through. So I wanted it to be in the book, but we did not want the book to be so sad that no one would want to read it. So what we did is we found a way to make Ioannis' story about leaving Cuba also be a story about our creature, the Madre de Aguas, because when I was talking to Adam about the Madre de Aguas of Cuba, one thing that kept happening is that as I talked to different people and I read different books and I learned all about the history of the Madre de Aguas in Cuba, one of the things I kept finding was, like, in some stories, she's an enormous monster. In other stories, she's just like a little, like, you know, practically a garden snake living in the bottom of someone's well. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Should we make her big? Should we make her small? So we came up with a story where when Ioannis is leaving Cuba, he's in the middle of this very sad departure, saying goodbye to his mom. He doesn't even know if he's going to survive. He goes to a little fuentecita, a little fountain that his mom has in the yard. And he realizes that he dumps like some soda, like some Coke, you know, something he doesn't normally get to have. It was a special treat in the fountain. And the water like turns black, of course, because, you know, you can't dump Coke into a fountain. And the Madre de Aguas gets really mad and gets bigger. And so we see her get bigger and smaller. And that became part of the way we explain the mechanism. Because remember, in Unicorn Rescue Society, they're not magic. It's actually like scientific, by which the Madre de Aguas sometimes appears as a terrifying huge monster and sometimes appears as a little tiny snake.
That was a really fun problem to wrestle with, and Emma and I we worked on that for a very long time. And in the course of writing, there's a lot of back and forth and discussion and wrestling with and pulling out our hair. And in fact, I have to say that David helped me and Emma with the ending of our Madre de Aguas book. I was like, David, we're kind of stuck. And he was like, what if this happened? And it totally worked. So it really is a team, the Unicorn Rescue Society. So we finished the story, and then we send it to our editor, Julie Strauss-Gable. And if you're in publishing, you know who she is, because she is at this point a famous editor. She has edited so many incredible books. If you don't know her, you should. She is also, as she'll readily admit, really, really mean. Just the meanest editor on the planet. And it's because she has high standards for us. And she insists that these books be fantastic. And she is not going to take less than fantastic from us. So we are grateful to Julie for that. So we go through the editing process, and we write and we rewrite. And David and I had an experience as we were rewriting where we had to lose something that we really loved, something that was important to us.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that Adam was drawn to writing about Laredo specifically, as among the different border towns, in there he is, Chupacabras, was his experience with the students there and the school district. Adam had been doing a lot of school visits that kind of put Adam on the map, frankly. And he had set up some like book clubs that were called, which is just the coolest name ever, the Laredo Writers Block, as if like a block of writers, but also writer's block. And they worked with him on their own stories and gave him feedback on his own ideas. And so when we knew that we were going to write about Chupacabras in Laredo, he's like, we need to go and meet with them and get ideas from them and get their feedback on our ideas. And so we sat down with them. We had this really great brainstorming session, and they gave us cool ideas and nixed some of the ideas that we had, and then approved of others. It was just great. It was like having like a whole bunch of little Julies there around a table making our lives miserable. But anyway, but they were fantastic. And so as a way to honor them and what they had brought to the conversation, we wanted to include characters in the book that would be like those students, that would be kind of like each character would be like a mixture of a couple of different characters, and they would be able to recognize themselves perhaps in the story. And so we created this whole like B plot with these kids having their own adventures and helping the Unicorn Rescue Society with different things and taking the Schmuck brothers on a wild goose chase. It was a lot of fun, but the book was way too long. And Julie was like, guys, something's got to go. You have packed so much plot into this, but these books, they need to be more or less the same length, all of them. And you've got to find a way to do this. And so, oh my God, it was so hard because we were so, in love with the storyline, and those kids are so adorable, and we care about them so much. Luckily, they all are in high school now, and so hopefully they won't be as hurt. But who knows? High school people can, if they're listening to this right now.
Hey, some of them might be here tonight, David.
Yeah.
Some of them, they're like,
actually. You wrote us in and then wrote us out. But it was one of the hardest things ever. And sometimes I suggest to Adam that maybe one day up on the website or whatever, we could like bring back those chapters just as kind of like an oddity for people to read. I think it would be fun.
That would be fun.
We should do that. I think it would be fun. But those are the hard choices you have to make because, you have a team of people working together, editors, line editors, the authors, the agents, and everybody is working together for a common cause, which is to make the best book possible, given whatever constraints there are. And so, hard decisions are made, but at the end of the day, I think the book, it moves at a faster clip, and it is, it's a really great book. And we were able to include a couple of kids from Laredo, Matt and his Mateo and his sister Lupita, who kind of like in their relationship with each other and with the rest of the kids kind of epitomize all the coolness of the kids in Laredo. So it worked out all right, I think, in the end.
It did. They say kill your darlings, but in this case it was kill your students, which I don't recommend in real life.
Probably not.
though it's May, and I'm sure most teachers are, never mind. You might be at that point. So the other member of the team that I want to mention, though he's not here tonight, is Hatem. Hatem Ali is the illustrator of all of these books, and we are just so lucky to have him as a member of the team. And in fact, we've just learned that Hena and I will be doing one more public event on May 14th, and Hatem will be joining us and doing some drawing with us and talking about the process. So check out that online, more information to come. But Hatem's art is just incredible. And, you know, David said there are line editors and copy editors and the art designer. They have to make the book fit. You know, there's a lot of, and this is a gorgeous picture of midday prayer. But there is just a lot to, oh, look at this one. To figure out how it all goes together. One of the things that I've learned through this process and working with this team is I think I'm really working on learning how to learn and learning how to listen. In this world, we all want to do good. We all want to be good people. And it's not always easy. Sometimes we try hard and we really step in it. There was a passage, and I've told this story before, but maybe many of you haven't heard it, in Sasquatch and the Muckleshoot, where we were writing about the Indian schools, the schools where Native American kids were taken to sort of have their culture suppressed and taught the sort of white dominant culture of America. And Joe, you can step in and correct me if I'm getting that wrong, but I will give you a moment. I will give you a chance to. I wrote a passage about that because we thought it should go in the book. And it was in one of the chapters I was writing. And I sent it off to Joe because we write chapters, we send them back and forth. And he wrote back and he read it and he said, that was really great. Thank you so much. Very sensitive of you and totally wrong. I just got it just wrong. And Joe was very sweet about it. And I was like, well, would you write it? And of course he wrote it, and it's a wonderful passage that really reflects what was going on there. And something that Joe said in the process of writing the book and also put in the book is we have one mouth and two ears, so we should listen twice as much as we speak. And these days, in this era of social justice, which I really believe is rising, and I believe that young people in particular are working really hard to try to change this world and make it a better place. I would like to make a plea to all of you young people as well as you adults to listen to Joe and listen to other people, listen to everyone. And just because you have good intentions doesn't mean you know everything. So listening twice as much as you speak is something that I've taken from this series. Joe, do you want to add anything to that anecdote? You don't have to, but if you wanted to, I want to give you a chance before we get into our game.
Not necessarily the anecdote, but in general, I think that one of the things that made me want to be part of this series was I knew it was going to be socially and culturally sensitive, that each of these books was going to teach something beyond just a funny story, beyond just a romp through mythological creatures, that there was going to be something very serious at the base of it, but presented in such a way that people could accept it, that they could learn from it, and they could enjoy it. Because quite frankly, in traditional storytelling, there are two things. One, a story has to be interesting, has to be enjoyable. That way you'll read it or listen to it and remember it. But secondly, it has to contain a lesson. Not a lesson that hits you over the head, but a lesson that's there, sometimes so subtle you don't get it right away. But because you remember the story, that lesson is available to you. And I think every single one of these books does that. It tells stories that people are going to remember, and within it, there are important things that are true that we all need to keep in mind, especially, as you were saying, Adam, these days when I think people are beginning to wake up to many things, but also there's a lot of confusion during that waking.
Beautifully said. Before we get to the game, would anyone else like to say any last things? You don't have to, but I don't want to cut anyone off. Anyone have any last thing to add before the game?
I should add that I was the one who put the poop stuff into our book.
Yes. Thank you for saying that.
I was the pooper.
Save my reputation. There is the most outrageous of all of the poop jokes in any of the books is in this one, and it was entirely Joe's. So we'll make you read the book to get that one if you haven't read it already. So we are going to play a game now everyone calls Two Truths and a Lie. In this game, each author is going to tell you 3 things. One of them is false, and the other 2 are true. And they're going to say like A sentence, B sentence, C sentence. And in the chat, and I hope you're all ready to type, you're going to say which one you think is a lie by writing that letter in the chat. And it's hopefully going to look like a storm of answers. Oh yeah, wow, we got a lot of great comments here. Okay, great. So I'm going to turn it over to, who wants to go first? Should we go in reverse book order? Because we went in book order last time. Let's do that. So, Hena, 2 truths and a lie.
Okay. Okay. A, B, C? All right. A. One of the creatures in our book came from a really terrible commercial for Pakistani International Airlines that my brother Azim, who's here tonight with us, showed me. B, I wanted to write about Pakistan so I could include tea, which we call chai and never chai tea, and because I'm obsessed with making it. And C, I've been to Pakistan many times, and I visited the site of the book, Torgar, also known as Black Mountain.
A, B, or C? Is it the cheesy airline commercial, or the chai, not chai tea, or Hena went to Torgar? What do you think it's going to be? Put it in the chat. A, B, or C. Okay, I'm seeing some A, B, A, B, B. I'm seeing some friends. Hey, Justin. All right. Okay. I got votes all over the place. All right. I see only 1 correct answer so far. Hena, tell us what's right.
So I have been to Pakistan, but I have never been to Torgar. It's a pretty remote part of the country. I would love to go. I'd love to go with Adam now that we've seen how amazingly beautiful it is. But I have not been there yet.
Wait, so can you just elaborate for 1 second on the commercial thing?
Oh, yes. So, well, without giving away any spoilers, this was the ultimate terrible commercial that you have ever seen. It was overly dramatic. There was this intense voiceover that said the most ridiculous, it was just like a bunch of words strung together with a bunch of beautiful images of landscapes and an airplane of some kind, where you sort of missed the point at the end. You're like, oh, it's an airplane that they're trying to advertise. But they had something, I don't even remember the buzz line that we were about to steal it. It was something about possibilities or your word is your something. I don't know, something so absurd. It was truly terrible. So terrible, it was amazing.
All right. Number, Emma, book 5, 2 truths and a lie.
Okay. A. Cuba is the 2nd largest island in the Caribbean. B. The Madre de Aguas is called a sea serpent, but actually prefers ponds and lakes. C. Havana is the capital of Cuba.
A, B, or C? Put it in the chat, folks. The first one was Cuba, 2nd largest island in the Caribbean. B was sea serpent that actually prefers ponds and lakes. No, that was B. Sorry, that was B. And C was Havana is the capital of Cuba.
Havana is the capital of Cuba. Can we do like Jeopardy music? Like do.
Only if I could be LeVar Burton. New host.
All right, I'm seeing a lot of C's.
One person thinks it's A.
One person thinks it's A.
A couple people came in a little late, like they were Googling things. Definitely no fair to Google. Rose is saying, wait, B? A? All right, Emma, tell us what it is. We got guesses all over the place.
It is, in fact, A. Cuba is the biggest island in the Caribbean. It's also the closest to the United States. It's just south of Florida. It is a very, very, very large island.
You know that Emma was not going to be talking about Cuba and saying it was second at anything. Second best.
Well, this is one of those things where like Adam, I think even when we were writing the book, we were like talking about the idea of like the pearl of the Antilles or like the jewel of the Caribbean. And then you would find like somebody who was like, no, it's not Cuba. It's like, that's Puerto Rico. That's the Dominican Republic. So I really, for this, I thought of something that could only, like, this was just objectively true in terms of like square mileage.
Objectively number one.
Exactly.
All right, David.
Okay, mine. I was inspired to write about chupacabras by a real-life rancher from my community who shot one and took it to Texas A&M for testing. B, like Elliot and Uchenna, I also had a teacher who was from Peru. And C, I love to put chili powder on watermelon and eat it. Dun, dun.
A, B, or C? A, he knows a rancher who shot a chupacabra and took it to a university. B, wait, what was B?
B was, I already forgot. Oh, that I had a teacher from Peru, just like Elliot and Jenna.
And C is that David eats chili powder on his watermelon. All right, what do you put them in there, people? Put them in there.
Which one's the lie? Which one is the lie? Are any of my friends in here? Because they'll know right away.
I gotta say, these questions are hard enough that people have no clue. We got B, A, C, A, C, C, B, A, B. The golden goose, A, B, A. Okay. David.
All right. So the lie is C. I do not like chili powder on watermelon.
I thought it was B.
Huh? Are you deceived now? Do you feel like?
Wait.
No, I was wrong. I just got it wrong is all I'm saying.
David, we have to stop the train and tell me about what happened when he took the chupacabra for testing.
Okay, so there's a rancher, Hank Lozano. He lives his ranch is about 15 minutes from my house. And in 2010, he was hunting with a friend of his compadre on the ranch. And they had just finished up, and they were walking back to the truck when this strange creature walked through the gate, like heading right towards them. And it saw them, and it slunk down for a second, and it was the weirdest thing ever. Hairless, weird spines down its back, strange claws that didn't look quite like a dog or a coyote. And then it rushed them, and Hank, he had his shotgun open, we say breached, and it didn't have any shells in it. He had a shell in his pocket. He pulled it out, put it in, and shot the thing as it came towards them. And then he threw it on the back of his truck, and he drove to Texas A&M the next day, because that was a Sunday. He drove there on Monday and turned it over to them so that they could do like DNA testing on it. So that's pretty wild.
That is amazing. And we never found out what they came back with, right? That's the part of the story that you never.
Well, he tells lots of tall tales, so like I don't know whether to trust what he said, but he said that they found it was mostly coyote, but that there was some unrecognizable like codons or like little fragments of DNA that were not familiar to them. So
that's pretty amazing.
I know what it means. Yeah,
I know what it means. It means it was a chupacabra.
It was a chupacabra.
Yeah. Joe, 2 truths and a lie.
Okay. First of all, in addition to this book, I also have a story in the magazine of science fiction, fantasy and science fiction about a Sasquatch. That's A. B, my son James was part of the series on television about tracking Sasquatch because he is a professional animal tracker and actually has written a lot of so-called crappy books, including this one, Scats and Tracks of the Mid-Atlantic. Or C, a friend of mine's aunt helped a Sasquatch which had a broken leg many years ago, and that Sasquatch repaid her by bringing gifts to her house for about 6 months. So,
wow. Okay. A, Joe has a story about Sasquatch in a magazine. B, his son was on one of these Sasquatch hunting TV shows. Or C, his neighbor helped a Sasquatch and the Sasquatch brought gifts to the neighbor. A, B, or C, which is not true.
And C is a friend in the Pacific Northwest, not my near neighbor.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Friend in the Pacific Northwest. My apologies. All right. Most people are voting for C as not being true, but now we're getting a couple A's and a B. Emma is saying it's got to be A. She thinks you didn't actually write that story. All right. A's are now becoming more popular. Joe, please tell us what's true and what's false.
Okay, the story in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction is called An Indian Love Call, and it was in 3 issues ago. The bit about my son, he was invited to be on that show and also be on Naked and Afraid. He turned them both down. But the story about the Sasquatch being helped, my friend Ken Rainbow Cougar Edwards, who is a Pacific Northwest native storyteller, insists this happened to his aunt. She helped the Sasquatch and it began bringing presents to her and leaving them in her the back of her house. She never saw it, but one day there was a whole bunch of clothing that was hanging on her clothesline, and she didn't know where that came from. The next day, truck and car tires piled all over the backyard. The day after that, meat of all kinds hanging from the trees, and this went on for quite a while. She was worried because she thought the Sasquatch isn't buying that. He has to be taking it from somebody else. I'm going to be in big trouble. But eventually, I guess the Sasquatch felt, I've done enough, and the presents stopped coming.
Tell us why your son turned down being on the Sasquatch Hunter show.
He said, well, first of all, he didn't want to have people make fun of him because he's a professional animal tracker. But secondly, he said, I respect Sasquatch too much to bother it. We should not be bothering it because everybody in my family knows that Sasquatch is real, and every tribal nation I've ever visited has stories, often firsthand stories, having to do with that being or its relatives in different parts of this country.
And Rose wants to know why he turned down Naked and Afraid.
He said, I'm never afraid in nature, and I'm certainly not afraid to be naked, but you know.
Both of your sons are special people.
Yeah, actually, let me show you. This is kind of cool. This is that son, James, with a friend of his. That's a full-grown Alaskan timber wolf named Elvis.
Yeah, like I said, cool people. All right, we've got about 17 minutes left, and I would like to open it up to questions from the group. So we've got some questions in the Ask a Question section. You can, if you see everybody ask questions down at the bottom, and I'm going to let Talia moderate this part. So thank you, Talia. Welcome back.
Of course. Thanks for welcoming me back. I have a question from Rose, and I believe that David and Adam talked a little bit about this, about the kids who were in their book that they had to cut. But Rose asked, what was your favorite ditched idea? And I wonder if one of the other authors might be able to comment on that.
Did any of us have other things that did not make it into our books that we wished had? Trying to think.
Maybe the bobblehead?
Oh yeah. I mean, Hena, go for it, please.
Yeah,
that was definitely one of the favorites.
We had put in our watcher, our character who helps the team, look for the unicorn. We had him not speak English, and so he would gesture with his head. And on the Indian subcontinent, a lot of people will shake their head like this when they mean yes. So we had him doing that, and it causing a lot of confusion. But when we had, astute readers check it, they said, well, that's more of like a southern Indian thing, and this is the northern area of Pakistan, and so that wouldn't be as common. And so we were trying to be as authentic as possible, so we ended up taking it out, even though it was so silly and hilarious and led to like so many confusing moments where they were like, wait, yes, no, what are you trying to say? So I kind of was sad to take it out.
It was a good running joke because by the end he was using it against them, but we want the books to be authentic, and even for a silly joke, not worth it. But we had some good laughs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we were pretty lucky. I don't remember us having to leave anything out that we really cared about. So I think we kind of got it all in for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, I had to cut most of the things that I wrote, but you didn't care about any of them, so that worked out fine. No, we were lucky.
I have a question here from Jacob, who's 9, and he wants to know if there are plans for more books to come. Any other magical creatures you would like to highlight, Adam?
That's a great question. So, Julie, if you're on there, we need to have at least one more book. So we signed a contract for 6 books in the Unicorn Rescue Society, and Hena's book is the 6th. I'm not holding them very prettily, but there are 6 books now. So to really wrap the story up, we would need at least one more. But there are at least 3 other incredible authors out there who have said they would really like to write one of these with us. One of them won a Newbery Honor last year. One of them won 2 Newbery Honors last year, so you all know who that is. So we would love to write more of these if we can, because we have a lot of fun doing it. So if you all go out and buy a lot of books, and you tell your friends to buy the books, and they tell their friends to buy my books, hopefully we can write you some more Unicorn Rescue Society stories. And if not, we'll just have to post them online like David suggested, because that's a good idea too.
Yeah, I suggest too that we are lacking anything that deals with Africa or African American history or culture. And I think that's a big mistake. Big mistake. Hear that, Julie? Big mistake. One way to remedy that. Number 7.
One of the authors who wants to write is from that background. So hopefully we can get that book written. We would
just saying.
Absolutely. And to Adam's point about getting your friends to buy the book, if you have friends who you think would like this series, you can send them this video of our event tonight, and that might get them hooked. So once we're done, you can just send them the same exact link, copy it from your URL, and it will show up as a video. So you can send it to any of your friends who you think would have fun watching this, and it might get them hooked to buy the books. All right. I have a question here from Eric who says, what is your favorite book from childhood? It can be a picture book or a chapter book. Who wants to go first?
Let's go around the horn. Go for it. Let's just do book order. Go ahead, Joe.
I would say it changed constantly because I was such a voracious reader, but I will never forget reading Mr. Popper's Penguins. It was a book that just really blew my mind. And I think that that's the best thing about reading. You have a favorite book, and then another book can come and take its place without losing the love for the first one.
Yeah, I totally agree. Oh man, this is a hard question. I guess one of my favorite books now I find problematic, and so I don't know that I would read anymore, but when I was a kid I loved it. And one of the problems with being a Mexican American kid in the 70s and 80s was that there weren't like books by Mexican American writers that that were readily available, or Latinx writers in general. And so one book that I loved a lot was Madeleine L'Engle's A Swiftly Tilting Planet, which is like book 3 in her time quartet that starts with A Wrinkle in Time or whatever. And even though it does it in frankly a problematic way, it centers a lot on Native Americans, and I just found that like refreshing. Like the concepts in the book spoke to me, and I was a big fantasy fan, science fiction fan, and so it kind of filled a need I had for reading something that was about Indigenous people.
So, like David, this is a question that I always struggle with because, for the reasons David said, many of the books that I loved and that spoke to me very deeply as a kid they either portrayed such a narrow slice of the world that I don't feel like they would necessarily speak to kids today in the same way. And I also just think that everybody needs new books because it's been a long time since I was a kid. And there are so many exciting new books out there that I know that if they had been published when I was a kid would have meant the world to me. So I always like to talk about new books that are exciting that I think you should read. One that I love is Gabby Lost and Found by Angela Cervantes. That is just a beautiful book. One that it will make you cry. It will give you the warm and fuzzies because there is a cute dog in it. So that's just like a recent book that I recommend. But I know that if it had been written when I was a kid, I would have loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally get that. I wish I had so many books that I'm reading now when I was growing up. But when I was growing up, I loved a lot of Beverly Cleary and Judy Blume. And I think my favorite book as a kid that I used to read and reread over and over again was Little Women. And that's what inspired me to write a book inspired by it. More to the story is sort of my it's not a retelling, but it's inspired by Little Women. And I took elements of the classic and my favorite and sort of wove it into a new story. Uh-oh, we lost Adam.
We lost Adam.
By the way, isn't it cool the way Little Women is such a timeless book? It just continues on, and people make movies about it, and every time they make another movie, it's a good movie about it.
Yeah, this is getting better.
Yeah, I do think they're getting better. The most recent one was like the first thing that ever made me feel better about Amy and Teddy, because that was something I've been very upset about my entire life.
Me too.
In middle school. But then I saw the new movie and I was like, oh, I kind of get it now.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Adam.
Am I back? Oh, good. Excellent. Yes. So I really, Emma, I think what you said is so important. And there are so many more books now, right? We have so many books coming out these days that really can inspire us. That said, my favorite book from childhood is one that came out even way before I was born. You probably all know it. It's called The Carrot Seed. And I could recite the whole thing to you right now. I don't think I will, but it starts with a little boy planted a carrot seed. And his father said, I'm afraid it won't come up. And his mother said, I'm afraid it won't come up. And his big brother said, it won't come up. But every day he planted the seed, watered the seed, and weeded the dirt around the seed. And then one day a carrot comes up. And the picture of the carrot at the end of this book is so enormous. This is the biggest carrot you have ever seen in your life. It's bigger than all of the members of the family. And that persistence, despite what people around you are saying, is something that has resonated with me for a very long time. And I've rebought the book again at various junctures of my life when I felt like it looked like maybe things the carrot wasn't going to come up the way that I hoped it would. The Carrot Seed is something that is lodged deep in my heart and keeps inspiring me.
That's a great answer. All right, let me see what's the next question. Okay.
Can I jump in? There was one kid in the Ask a Question who said they want to join the Unicorn Rescue Society, but it doesn't seem to be working for them. And I just want to say, if you go to unicornrescuesociety.com, all of you, and click join and you put in your information, nothing happens, obviously, except that when a new book comes out, you get a free packet in the mail of tattoos and stickers and membership cards to the Unicorn Rescue Society. So you will think that nothing's happening, but that's because it's a secret society. And then you get tattoos and stuff for free in the mail. We currently have hundreds and hundreds of people, 1,000 people signed up. But I don't know why more people don't sign up, because it's just free tattoos in the mail every time a book comes out, and you get all the back ones. So please sign up for Unicorn Rescue Society at the website. Sorry to interrupt you, Talia.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for clarifying that. I have a few questions here from Asher and from the Aben family who ask about your process. So Asher wants to know, do you prefer to type on a laptop or write physically? And then the Aben family says, do you have video meetings or share Google Docs when you collaborate?
Who wants to cover that? Who wants to start? Hena, do you want to go first?
Sure. I used to write on paper, but I found that I just changed things too much. So I've switched to a computer, and that's what I write on. And when Adam and I were working together, we were actually taking turns writing chapters. And so we would actually email a Microsoft Word document back and forth. And then we would insert our comments into that document or make edits and then send it back. So it was sort of like this living document that we exchanged until it was done.
Adam and I had a very similar process while we were working on Unicorn Rescue Society, but the chapters that I drafted, I wrote in a notebook like this. I would write them in a notebook like this and then type them up. And I'm very old, so of course I write in cursive, but it looks like this on the inside, so it's like pretty messy with lots of doodles in it. And I have had a notebook like this since I was in elementary school. So if you have a teacher who is forcing you to keep a marble notebook as your writer's notebook, I encourage you to keep doing that because you never know what'll come of it.
Wait, I'm just amazed. Sorry to interrupt, but you write out the whole chapter by hand and then type it?
Yes and no. So I do. I mean, like you'll see there are places where I'm writing like entire paragraphs in cursive. Oh. There are other times where I'm writing like, let me see if I can find a good example, where I'm writing like a list of, things that I want to include and then I type it. But at least at the very beginning, I only do this like the very, very first step. It's helpful for me not to be distracted.
The computer is so distracting, and any chance to get away from the screen is a great thing. Or get away from the internet. These days, I'm writing in the park. I walk down to the park every morning and just sit there because there's no Wi-Fi in the park. At least no one has told me the passcode yet, and I hope they never do.
Yeah, I've been using a computer since I was 13, back in 1983, and I write poetry by hand, but like all prose is I just write it completely in the computer. I do all my planning. I have folders with documents and notes and like all this world building stuff, and I'm completely computer driven for prose writing.
Oh, Joe, you're muted.
Yeah, I always used to write in notebooks. I have tons of them. For example, when I was in West Africa for 3 years, so I can go back and turn to any day and begin to remember things. But these days, I don't do that. What I do is I have a cell phone, and I dictate into my cell phone as I'm walking through the woods. And often I do it when I'm walking with my dog. I have a new novel coming out called Res Dogs that entirely was done while I was walking with my dog, dictating it into my cell phone, and then printing it up and then doing my revisions on the computer after I'd done that. So I may be the oldest person here. I'm probably twice as old as most of you, but I have gotten very much into modern technology.
And yet it's such a throwback too, because it harkens back to the oral tradition where the stories are told. And it's also, Dostoevsky, for example, wrote all of Crime and Punishment by dictating it. And Brothers Karamazov, which is clear because they never edited it, obviously. So it's a real throwback as well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I used to have a group of people following behind me, scribing everything I said. There was this Boswell guy, for example, but now I do it myself on the iPhone.
I have a question here from Coco who says, did anyone predict you would be a writer when you were a kid?
Okay, who raise your hand if somebody predicted you would be a writer when you were a kid? Okay, 3 out of 5. All right. Somebody tell us the story of that.
Well, I mean, I come from a family of storytellers, and I learned to read when I was really young, when I was 4 going on 5. And so as I read more and more books, and it like just something happened in my mind where I realized I wanted to do the storytelling thing that my relatives did, but in books. And so that's the way where it came.
And Joe, why did they not think you would be a writer?
Well, I think it was because I was so interested in nature. Everybody thought I was going to be a naturalist, and maybe actually write about nature now that I think of it. But it took a very interesting turn. When I went to college, I majored in wildlife conservation for 3 years, and then took some creative writing courses and completely changed my direction. And then went to Syracuse University on a writing fellowship, but I was a probationary student because I had not got the highest actual average because I had not done too well in a couple of other courses in college. So it was very interesting. I maintained an A-level average when I was in graduate school, but still, everybody thought I was going to be a naturalist and maybe work in a national park or work in a zoo or something like that.
You've married those really nicely. Hena, I think you were going to say something, and then I know we're running out of time. Go ahead.
Oh, no, just that it's amazing when people recognize what kids are passionate about and encourage them. And I had a next door neighbor who knew I wrote a family newspaper, and she was so taken by that she actually she quilted a book for me. I think she took one of those denim binders and she quilted a cover on it, and she filled it with paper and like photo pages for me to keep my writings in. and presented it to me and just said, you are a writer. And I remember I was always too nervous to even fill up the pages because I was, didn't want to mess them up or make mistakes. But just having her believe in me meant so much.
How about you, Emma? Did they know?
My mic was muted. Yeah, there's some debate about this because my story about how I became a writer is that I had to write in my writer's notebook because my sister never let me talk. I think her version is I became a writer because I talked all the time. And so I just had so many words in me that I had to write them down. There is some debate, but I think there was some real certainty that words and saying them and making my voice heard was going to be a part of my life.
That's amazing. I'll just say that I certainly had no idea I would be a writer. I found writing very difficult as a child. So if you're a young person and you find writing hard, my handwriting was terrible. I got a headache in one eyebrow whenever I had to write. So I never thought I would be a writer, but I did a lot of playing and a lot of imagining, a lot of G.I. Joes. And honestly, in middle school, I don't want to admit this, but it's true, I did a lot of lying. I was constantly exaggerating stories so people would pay attention to me, and they always knew I was lying, and it always ended up bad, but I couldn't stop myself from doing it. I had a lot of trouble in middle school. And so whether you have trouble writing or you just like imagining or you're just a liar, there is hope for you yet. You might be an author one day.
All right. Great advice, Adam, telling all the kids watching to lie. I have one final question here from Isabel, who says, will the books be translated? Have any of them been translated so far, or are there plans in the works for that?
Yes, the books are being translated. So we have books are in Spanish already. I'd have to get out the list, but yes, books are translated. David, do you remember the name of the Spanish language publisher? We worked on this together, and now I can't remember. You're muted.
I couldn't get my mouse to the little square. Yeah, no, I don't remember it. I just remember like being frustrated by the Spanish title of the series. But anyway,
go ahead, say it.
Oh no, I don't even remember anymore. It's like really annoying and very clunky and not particularly good. What is it? Something like instead of being the Unicorn Rescue Society, it's the Unicorn Society for Rescue, right?
Yeah.
Sociedad Unicornio de Rescate or something like that. It's like not. It just mistranslates the idea of Anyway, but yeah, it's
read in Spanish, and they said it actually reads okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the translation itself reads just fine. I just don't like the translation of the series title. But hey, whatever.
So it's in Spanish, and I believe more languages are coming, but I don't have the list. So thank you for asking that.
Yeah, okay. So it looks like we are a little bit over time right now, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I want to say thank you so much to all of our authors tonight. Thank you to Emma, Hena, David, Joe, and Adam. It's been such a fun night, and I want to give a few quick reminders before we wrap up. You can buy all of the Unicorn Rescue Society books and bunches of books from all of these authors from Flyleaf. There's a green link right below our faces, and you can click that or have a parent click it and find all of those books at the bottom of the page. You can also go to the Flyleaf Books logo toward the top of your screen to see all of our future events and recordings of all of our past events. One that I want to personally invite everyone here to, because I think you'll probably like it a lot, is next Saturday, the 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time in the afternoon. We're hosting Kwame Mbalia and Prince Yoel Makonnen and Karen Strong to talk about Last Gate of the Emperor, which is a science fiction story set in Africa. So it's African mythology, but then there's also robots and monsters and space travel. So that one I think will be a lot of fun. Kwame is hilarious. If you haven't heard him speak at one of your schools, he's wonderful as a presenter. So I hope all of you will register for that event. It's free, and come and hang out with us next Saturday. I think that'll be a lot of fun. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and close out tonight. Thank you to everyone. Thank you all so much. And thank you everyone for watching. I hope you have a great
Flyleaf Books. Thank you all.
Oleoni, thank you, my friends.